One thing I've praised consistently about Horizons is its ability to make the journey matter, no matter how small an episode or character might seem at first. This series somehow manages to bring things back later and make them feel important, meaningful, or at least more significant than expected. And this episode is one of the strongest showcases of that. Perrin could have easily been a one-off character whose main purpose was just to reference Scarlet and Violet, specifically its expansions, especially since she wasn't actually a one-off character. She appeared in multiple episodes, and her role was bigger than expected. This really could have been it for her. YS felt even more like a one-and-done character, especially since he is an anime original character who appeared in just one episode, where he mostly helped us learn more about Molly and gave us a few laughs. This could have been it for him. In fact, I never expected him to return. And yet, here they are, and they don't just come back for the sake of it. They come back to support Liko and the company emotionally, since they reinforce that they are not alone. They still have people who know, trust, and believe in them, and directly because Perrin is a photographer and YS is a journalist. So their specialties complement each other perfectly. Together, they can help the Rising Ball tacklers clear their name. I love this, especially because I knew that this is how they would contribute. But they are not the only returning characters. Yanga was an even smaller character. He only appeared briefly back in episode 54. But here he is, ready to contribute to the fight in his own way. He understandably does hesitate initially because he works for Exceed, but in the end, he still chooses to help, which is brave and commendable. So once again, a seemingly minor character returns and ends up having a meaningful role. And we're not done yet. Master Mayonnaise had a larger role than the other three, but he appeared in a mini arc that felt very much like a side story. It aired between two major arcs and was meant to fill in the gap left by the 1-year time skip. It was important for Roy and Old, yes, but it didn't necessarily feel like something that would connect back into the main narrative this directly, and yet, here he is, stepping into the present-day story, and like the others, he returns to contribute something important. In his case though, said contribution is felt immediately in this episode, but more on this later. This is the crux of this episode. Perrin, YS, Yanga, and Master Mayonnaise are all characters who could have been left behind after their initial appearances. But they weren't, and they don't return as just Easter eggs. They do so to support Liko and company emotionally and practically. Meeting them was not just a random stop along the way. Their episodes and moments were not disposable. They mattered. The relationships and connections that made them return were built by Liko and company. People they met, helped, collaborated with, befriended, etc. are now here as stalwart allies that believe in them and are willing to help them. This really rewards us for sticking with the story from start to finish, watching and remembering every step of the journey. That said, what Master Mayonnaise immediately contributes upon his arrival is also important. He gives Roy a Lucarionite Z, a power-up, which is obviously huge going into the final battle. But he doesn't just hand it over and calls it a day. He battles Roy so he and Lucario can see if they can use Mega Lucario Z. Unfortunately, the battle itself is not very good. Honestly, it might be one of the worst battles we've had in a while. There are a lot of still frames, slow movement, impact shots with speed lines trying to carry the motion, and moments where it feels like the episode is trying to suggest action rather than actually animate it. Even when Lucario lands a flurry of attacks on Mega Lucario, the scene is mostly just Lucario's arms moving while both Pokemon stay pretty static. I understand the point is to show that Mega Lucario is such a bulky wall of muscle that Lucario's attacks barely move it, but visually, it still feels stiff and lifeless. Pacing is also terrible because this might be the most Halucha we've ever seen. It's perhaps the Halucha that has embraced the wrestler identity the most. It poses for the crowd, hypes them up, climbs up to a high position to strike poses like a wrestler on the turnbuckle, and it even gets angry when Lucario interrupts its showboating. All of this is hilarious and charming, and it fits Master Mayonnaise perfectly because both of them are silly and over the top. But every time Halucha decides to be Rey Mysterio, the battle stops, so it never truly builds any momentum or intensity. That said, I do like how strongly the battle commits to Halucha's identity. Even acrobatics is framed in a very wrestler-like way, with Halucha using its legs to put Lucario in a headlock and its body weight to flip Lucario into the ground. Flying press as the finisher also fits perfectly, because Halucha jumps down from a high position like a wrestler coming off the turnbuckle to finish an opponent. This had all the markings of a really cool final moment, but because the episode zooms in so much on the initial impact and then zooms out so much on the fall, it robs the moment of a lot of its intensity. We don't really get to appreciate much motion, detail, or animation, which is a shame because it could have been much more spectacular. So, in terms of animation, choreography, and momentum, it's a pretty boring, plain, and underwhelming battle. Getting to see Mega Lucario in the anime is still exciting though, because it's one of the coolest new Mega Evolutions. So the battle is not completely worthless, especially because, like with most battles I don't like, at least it serves a narrative purpose. It builds on what has been brewing since episode 127. Lucario needs help. It was completely outclassed by Pommet, and it was left clearly frustrated afterwards. Then, in episode 129, Lucario did decently against Rayquaza and contributed to the team effort, but it was ultimately defeated and couldn't really shine or be key to the win like Skeledirge. So Lucario has been struggling, and this episode pushes this problem to the surface, especially because Roy fails to Mega Evolve it, which strongly suggests that this isn't just a power problem, it's a connection problem. There is a disconnect between Roy and Lucario, a gap in their rhythm, their aura, and their ability to fully understand each other in battle. Now, Encore is blamed for throwing them off, but Encore doesn't prevent a Pokemon from Mega Evolving, nor does it taunt the Pokemon or make it angry. It just forces the Pokemon to keep using the same move. Yet, on top of failing to Mega Evolve, Lucario clearly snaps at Roy and gets visibly angry and frustrated with him, which further emphasizes that there is an issue in their bond and their relationship. Honestly, this makes sense. Lucario joined Roy's team much later than Skeledirge and Kilowattrel, which is why its bond with Roy is not as strong as theirs yet. So while the battle itself is weak, it does its job by forcing Roy and Lucario to acknowledge that they still have work to do, especially if they want to use the Lucarionite Z. Finally, there are a couple of smaller details I really liked. First, I love that Master Mayonnaise is initially portrayed as this shady, suspicious guy following Freed from the shadows, looking extremely sketchy the whole time. This is hilarious considering that my first impression of him was that he looked kind of shady, and this episode really leans into that. I especially love that when Liko opens the door, expecting Freed, and sees Master Mayonnaise instead, she instantly closes the door on him. Honestly, this is the right reaction. Don't open the door for strangers, but if you accidentally do, and especially if the stranger happens to look extremely shady, then yeah, slam the door in their face. Lastly, I love that Iono, Clavel, Jita, Jack, and Hassel return as well. Iono especially, of course. She gets to say goodbye to the Rising Ball tacklers directly, while the others watch them fly off from a distance. This matters because it shows that even characters who cannot physically go with Liko and company can still support them. They already did their part, and now their support continues from afar. Pair this with Nemona, Penny, Anne, and Freed returning to join the team, and Liko seeing this gathering of allies while remembering some of the biggest moments from the recent episodes, and the message is clear. Everything has been building up to this. It's not just that Liko and company have a lot of allies, it's that the journey itself created these allies. And they all make this episode feel bigger, grander. They make the journey, every step of it, feel valuable and like it mattered. Which again, is the crux of this episode. So, overall, this was a good episode, but only because of the setup and the characters. The battle was terrible, but it still served an important purpose by highlighting Roy and Lucario's current problem, setting them up to address it and grow stronger. And the returning characters perfectly highlighted one of the greatest strengths of this series, while also setting the stage for Liko and friends to head into the final battle with all the support they need. As always, please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you so very much for watching, and let's meet again in the next video.